My name is Bernie Harrigan, Chairman of the BVI Chamber of Commerce and Hotel Association. Welcome to the second edition of the BVI CCHA Chamber Talk, a television program designed to provide you with an in-depth analysis and discussion on well-researched topics that impact the business community and, by extension, the territory. Such topics include air services, alternative energy, crime, national health insurance, and customs duty on imports, to name a few. Air services will be the topic of discussion for this second edition of Chamber Talk. Of priority concern are two fundamental questions. How do we decrease our overdependence on regional gateways and seize the opportunity to become more self-sufficient and self-reliant? Can we afford not to expand the airport capacity? The overall objective of this particular Chamber Talk program is to increase public awareness about the airlift challenges that the territory has experienced, especially over the past 5 years, the critical need for reliable and sustainable air services to the territory, the benefits of having direct air service to the territory, financing options to make this a reality, and an interim strategy for securing better access to the territory, as well as the need for greater involvement of BVI landers in the tourism industry. Our guests are Mr. Martin Van Wagenberg. He's the General Manager of Rosewood Little Dix Bay and a member of the BVI CCHA Board of Directors. Ms. Hadassah Ward, Director of the BVI Tourist Board. Mr. Denniston Fraser, Managing Director of the BVI Airports Authority. Excerpts from a presentation by Mr. Kent Myers, President and Managing Partner of Air Planners LLC, Colorado, at the BVI Business Outlook 2011 conference will be shown, as well as excerpts from an interview with Mr. Cameron McCall, Chairman of the Naniki Board of Directors. Ms. Ward, you and I inherited our positions, or I should say assumed our positions, at a critical juncture in the tourism industry. When we had a fuel crisis, we had an airlift crisis, and a deep recession. We are now going to hear from Mr. Kent Myers about the external factors that have influenced the tourism industry.
Just a little brief history. Everybody knows 9/11, major security and operational changes, numerous mergers of major airlines. 2007 were peak airport delays. 2008, the oil prices peak at $145 a barrel. Softness in demand moved the airlines to reduce inventory, cut flights, and are using smaller aircraft, so they down-gauged. September 2008 financial meltdown, all of these influenced the reduce of the available seats in the marketplace.
Okay, when you look at those external factors, they've obviously had a deep impact on us. Martin, could you describe briefly what the challenges have been here with airlift?
Yes, so if we look at roughly 5 years ago, we had, the same feed-in markets than that we currently have, so San Juan, St. Martin, and St. Thomas, and then a little bit from Antigua. Some 5 years ago, we had some adequate airlift into the area, particularly with American Eagle. They had, between 8 to 10 flights a day between San Juan and Beef Island. We had as well Cape Air, and then we had Air Sunshine as well that was flying into the territory. In the winter of 2008-2009 is when we saw a huge reduction of the different airlines, not only into the BVI, but first of all into San Juan. For example, American, which has been the main carrier into the territory, reduced their flights from 38 to 18 a day. Consequently, the flights from San Juan to Beef Island got reduced to 3 or 4 flights a day, which of course has a huge impact. You have to go from 10 flights a day, 65 seats on each plane, 650 seats to 190 seats. So, and on top of that, the pricing as well became an issue as with the lesser flights, the prices increased as well. The other challenge that we had in the territory was that the layovers that the guests and people in general had to experience in San Juan were extended, which put the travel time from the main destinations in the US into the BVI, put us very much in a disadvantaged position towards the other Caribbean islands. So realizing the fact that airlift was a big challenge, we did sat at the table with American Airlines, and we managed to put a minimum revenue guarantee on the table, so that at least that the third or the fourth flight actually for the 2009-2010 season, that we could guarantee that specific flight into the BVI. Which would mean that the arrivals into San Juan later on in the day or late afternoon or early evening could connect and actually get into the BVI on the same day. Then that particular plane would stay overnight in the BVI, and then early morning we would have the first flight out into San Juan, so that people could connect to basically all the different cities in the US. So again, in order to try to make the travel time, try to keep it to a minimum, we at least succeeded having that. So going back to this last winter season, 2010 to 2011, we went up from the 3 flights to 4 to 5, and at some days 6 flights a day. That is then on American. Cape Air was still continued to fly into the territory on a number of flights a day. So kind of looking forward, what seems to be happening and what we hear out of the marketplace is that airlines again are decreasing the number of flights. Certainly American seems to be decreasing the number of flights back into San Juan. Consequently, again, for us, that will have, for the BVI, will have an effect into arriving from San Juan to here. The other thing is, it seems that the ATR is kind of looking at replacement on the regional jets. If we then look as well that a number of airlines actually have increased their flights into the Caribbean, such as JetBlue, Continental. However, one of the criteria for them is to have direct access from the US into a main gateway into the islands. And certain of the other islands, our neighbors and our immediate competitors, have profited from that particular trend. The biggest challenge as well, and the biggest I presume, challenges that our sales team that we have on the road as well in the US is that it is so difficult to get to the BVI. Now that might be all relative, depends where I'm going into, but the most important thing looking forward, and what is very much of a decision factor for anybody to go on vacation as time becomes even more precious, is really the ease of access. And so what can we do to work on that particular issue, to work and to promote ease of access into the British Virgin Islands from externally and as well within the BVI itself.
Okay. Hadassah, from the Tourist Board's perspective, how well did we handle the challenges posed by the external conditions just described by Martin?
Well, I can't say we did great. I can't say we did terribly. I think in addition to the revenue guarantees that we did with Liat and American Eagle, Cape Air increased their number of flights. So on one flight number, they would have 3 planes, and so they were able to get more people in and out of the territory. And they pulled a Herculean, they really pulled a Herculean weight that 2008-2009 season, and we owe enormous gratitude to them. We also had a late ferry service through St. Thomas, and indeed because of of airfare to St. Thomas being cheaper than it is to Puerto Rico, we had a number of people, probably I would say a third of our visitors coming through St. Thomas, and we extended more ferry services, and the late ferry service enabled many of those people to get to the BVI the same day that they left home. That said, we are still a very difficult place to get to, and increasingly we are going to be more difficult to get to as airlines pull out of the Caribbean as a whole, as planes get larger. Not just commercial airlines are using larger planes, but private planes are getting larger and larger. And so the air strip and the airport that we felt would at least last us 15 to 20 years is seemingly increasingly not serving the purpose that we need it to serve. One of our major challenges is that of the gateways. It's not just the fact that we have airlift from a gateway such as San Juan and St. Martin or St. Thomas, or a ferry service to get people here. The issue is that these are our competitors, and if they're flying into San Juan, the people of Puerto Rico very rightly will say that they should stay in Puerto Rico. And so we have to compete for people. And so ease of access isn't a matter of whether we are shifting towards mass tourism. Ease of access is just enabling people who have always come to the BVI and have come here for many years, enabling them to still come. Because we are in danger of not just losing the future market share that we could have, but losing the market share we currently have, because people cannot get a seat into the BVI. And I hear that increasingly. People say to me, I had hotel booked, but I just could not fly in.
Okay, Dennison, given the challenges, immense challenges, I should say, that both Hadassah and Martin have just articulated, and with the development of Scrub Island now, in addition to the current tourism product that we have, and the development of Oilnut Bay and its marina, plus the investment that Cameron McCall is going to be making in Nanny Key, how much is that going to increase the demand for air services here, better air services?
I think very much so. We are working in tandem with the BVI Tourist Board, and I do think that with the advent of all these multi-million-dollar investments here in the BVI, we will definitely have to look at a turnaround for air access. In tandem with what both Hadassah and Martin's been saying, the statistics does prove from 2006, which was our top figures there for both passenger and aircraft movement at the TB Lettsome International Airport. Since then, we've seen a gradual reduction, 2007, 2008, 2009. I think it actually went from close to 400,000 passengers in 2006 and down to 2009, pretty close to 200,000. Since then, we've gradually seen, from 2010, seen an increase, slight increase. So we know that the factors that contributed to that was the whole recession, worldwide recession that we had. But hopefully now we will be continue, if we are to continue that increase in passengers here, given the advent of all the development, we definitely will have to look at different ways. And I know you want to talk about the plans that we have. I wouldn't want to jump ahead of your show here, but that's part of the strategy that the BVI Airport Authority taken into consideration, that people need to get here, ease of access. We've looked basically at some different options that we could have for airport expansion.
Okay, let's take a look at what a major developer, Cameron McCall of Nanny Key, has to say. He recently submitted a project for approval to the government for a $30 million investment in the expansion of Nanny Key. That expansion includes two major components: expansion of the boat yard to accommodate 100 additional boats, and expansion of the marina to accommodate over 200 yachts, including several mega yachts. So let's hear the perspective of this local investor.
We have been improving Nanny Key every year since we acquired it in 2000. And we had our 10th anniversary party, actually, just a couple of months ago. And about 3 years ago, we reached the point where our capacity was at fully maximum. Today we have a situation whereby we turn away boat owners almost every day. Our marketing efforts in Europe and in America and in the UK have been very successful, and we have demand for additional events, for additional boats that want to sail these waters. We have demand from mega yachts that wish to relocate here, to be based here, as opposed to United States or USVI or St. Martin, and at present we cannot accommodate them. And so we have a requirement for additional capacity. Our customers who have boats with us, almost without exception, arrive by air and depart by air from their boats. So airlift is central to our business. And so that's why I'm here today, really partially because it's core to me, my business, and also to all the rest of us here in the BVI. The demand exists, but it exists not just for airlift, but for the right type of airlift. Clients, particularly wealthy clients who come here and spend money, have tight timetables. Their lives are busy. They cannot afford to spend days sitting around in airports getting to and from destinations. And at the moment we are disadvantaged by the difficulty in clients getting to and from the BVI. The average vacation now in the United States is 4 days. And if you're going for a 4-day vacation, you don't want to spend 2 of those days getting to and from your destination. So there is a vast market out there of potential customers who would come and spend time with us if they could get in and out in a predictable and timely way. And what's interesting as well is that the research shows that they're prepared to spend. They may indeed spend more than many of our existing customers to have that convenience. So the cost is not the driving factor in this equation. The driving factor is time and convenience of getting to and from the BVI.
That supports what you both have said regarding airlift. It's time and convenience, it's ease of access to here. What have you noticed about the changing characteristics of travelers? For example, the traveling shorter distances, demanding more, spending less, etc., etc. What have you noticed in terms of the importance of time and convenience, the importance of easy access?
For me, based on the wide range of visitors and potential visitors that I speak to, and asking them what they're looking for in a holiday and in travel, for most people, the process of getting to where they're going is horrible. Travel nowadays is not a pleasant experience. You are strip searched, you are hassled, you go through immigration, you run through the terminal, you get to the gate, you have to sit for an hour or two, or the flight's just left. It's not a pleasant experience, and that's standard even if you're just going from here on a short hop to Puerto Rico. Imagine somebody who has a 4 or 5 leg travel day coming from Scotland to the BVI. I mean, you would hope that they'll be able to do it in 1 day, but that's 1 day of their vacation. And then they have to spend another day of their vacation getting back. Now that's coming from Scotland. But somebody coming from New York can actually spend a whole day getting here as well. And that certainly decreases the number of people who are going to come to the BVI for a shorter stay. Because for me personally, long vacations are unheard of. I steal a few days here and there, Hopefully, if everybody in my family can get our schedules together, we can get away for a weekend. But much longer than that, it's impossible. And so what we're looking for as the BVI is to have the ease of access so that people can slip in for a long weekend and then slip back out to their everyday lives. And that is the way that most holidays are going. Sure, we will certainly be a long-haul staple, but the fact that you're spending an entire day to get here, almost, you know, even if you're coming in from the Caribbean, you're still spending a whole day probably to get here. That is going to decrease the time you have relaxing, which is the whole point of coming here. And thus we become non-competitive, or a lot less competitive than other destinations. In terms of spend, it depends who we're marketing to. People are looking for value. Certainly the people we market to aren't necessarily looking to spend less money, but they're looking to get more value for the money they do spend. They need to feel validated in their choices. And if we're going to cost more to get to, then they need to feel that they got some kind of convenience and time savings in the increasing cost. If we're going to cost twice more than the other destination that we're competing against, then we should certainly, you know, at least be half the time that it took to get there. So we have to look at the fact that we're constantly competing against people who are marketing heavily. And as a result, every factor that weighs against us makes us less likely to get a visitor. So ease of access to the visitors that we market to, especially visitors who are not concerned necessarily, for whom cost is not the first concern, we have to realize that time and ease of access are going to be absolutely critical to these people, because their time is very valuable. In a meeting, you know, in an hour, they could probably make $1 million. So are we saying that they're going to spend 12 hours getting here? How much money have they lost in the process? Considering a lot of them can't talk while flying here, you know, can't email while flying here. We have to consider what they're giving up to come here and spend money for our economy to grow and for us to feed our children, for us to have a life. We have to regard basically our bread that's coming in. We have to kind of respect it and understand what they are looking for and provide that. And ease of access certainly is one of the #1 things I've heard from potential visitors, and also repeat visitors, people who have been coming here for years and have decreased the number of visits, or basically have gone somewhere else just simply because they did not have the time, they couldn't get a flight to come in.
We've seen that, you know, I think in the hotels in general, but specifically at Little Dix Bay, we've seen that the average length of stay of the guests is gone down from 7 to 5.3 nights. What we've seen last year and this year is that the guests are willing to spend some more money. So in 2008, 2009, everything was about deal, 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 and more deals. Now the guest still likes to have a deal, but they certainly expect much more value. Because they are less and they spend less time with us, they want to do and squeeze as many activities in as well. So their vacation is on a faster pace as what it used to be. And again, we as service providers and we have to make sure that, again, we have to step up as well, and making sure that we go a little bit faster with them to make sure that we can meet their expectations or actually exceed their expectations. And it's the exceeding part that we really have to focus upon in order to remain competitive, because again, the ease of access is a stumbling block at the moment, and there are many other destinations that are beautiful where a lot of activities actually can take place, but it's just much easier to get to. So the guests have a choice. And then if we now look as well on the social networking and the social marketing sites that are around, the communication that the guest, and then as well where a new guest based their decisions upon, gets very much, people look very much onto the social networking in order to make a final decision. So as a country as a whole, in terms of being welcoming, providing a service that exceeds the expectation, we all have to do that together. But that's what we really see, is that they expect more for perhaps a little bit less money than what we used to have 5 years ago.
Okay, well, thank you. We are going to take a break for a message from our sponsor, and when we return, we'll be talking about our overdependence on our gateway competitors.